9 minutes after 7 it is. This is Morning Express and it's time for Person of Interest. Now, our person of interest this morning is none other than one who has served in the National Assemblies. And in fact, he has been the second longest serving speaker, having served for 15 years under different leaders, of course. And he is also the National Cohesion and Integration Commission chair, and that's none other than Francis Ole Kaparo. Welcome, sir. And good to have you.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. First of all, let me start by apologizing. I think I mispronounced your name. It is Francis Xavier Kausai Ole Kaparo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's quite a number of names.
You not only mispronounced, you misspelled.
I misspelled.
Yes.
So there you have it. So for now, just to be on the safe side, we shall stick to Francis Ole Kaparo, which is what many of us are used to.
Yes.
And as usual on Person of Interest, we like to know where somebody is coming from. And let's just start with a brief background. I do know that you grew up in a very challenging environment, and even education was a bit of a challenge for you. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I don't like talking about myself.
Many people don't, and I don't know why. But you see, it's good for us to know where you're coming from, so that we appreciate where you are.
I come from Laikipia, a place previously called Kogoda African Reserve, a place reserved for the remaining Maasai community that was not kicked out of Laikipia under the 1911-1913 eviction. And there was no school until we went to school in 1959. And nobody knew what school was all about. But anyhow, somehow we ended up being in school.
So you'd have been one of the pioneers of knowing what a school is all about?
I was, as a matter of fact, yes.
You were?
I was in a group of 40.
Wow.
That were the first Maa-speaking children in Laikipia to be taken to school.
What were you doing before you discovered school?
I was doing what every other Maasai child then was doing. And that was obviously looking after the goats or the kids or the cows, because we were not up enough to look after the cattle.
Okay.
That's what every child did. A lot of them still do, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but yeah. Now, as you were growing up, I know you later became a lawyer. Of course, given the background that you had and the fact that you are pioneers of school, what drew you into law? I'm sure by that time there was not much exposure of what law is all about.
There was a little law around Doldol, which was the place I went to school. There was what was called then the African courts. And it was manned by local elders. And they tried cases, both of a civil and criminal nature. And occasionally they sent what then was our idols, the Morans, into jail. And among those elders in the African courts was my father. And they wore a very interesting robe, totally different from what they wore every day. And like every other child, you aspire to do what your father's done. I aspired to wear that robe, and finally I did.
Okay, so in his days, it was more of a council of elders, but now, of course, as you are progressing, it was now.
It was a court. And their decisions were legally enforced.
Was it a formal court, or it was just...
It was a formal court. It was called the African Court. And my father was president of the African Court. And he would send you to jail, and you would actually serve jail. And therefore, it isn't an informal thing. It was very formal.
It was very formal.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure their way of investigating and coming up with conclusion is very different from today.
It was, but obviously that is on the civil side of things. But on the criminal side of things, the investigators still remained the police, whether it was regular or the tribal police as the administration police. It was an investigation. And
okay, how would you compare their way of doing things and today, especially in regards to getting the criminals and doing what is necessary to ensure that we keep our communities clean?
I wasn't old enough to have learned a lot about the inner workings of the African courts. I was still very young. I think the only thing that impressed me was the way they wore. But I was also taken in by the hitting of the fact that they were sending these young people to jail. So those are the only impressions I have. I really don't know absolutely how they were being constituted, how they carried out the activities. I was too young to know. Yeah.
Okay. Then we do know, before we get to other heavier matters, that you are a chief scout of the Kenya Association of Scouts.
Proudly so. I have been chief scout of the Kenya Scouts for the last 15 years. I'm very proud. Occasionally when I go to the reconciliation meetings, and even in very dangerous places, sometimes I go there in full scout uniform.
Wow. And how did you end up becoming the chief scout? Is that something you had to apply for? How did you end up there?
I was voted in. I was voted in by fellow scouts, and I came to Kenya Scouts at a very, very difficult time. That was 2003. The Kenya Scouts Association was bankrupt, and it was at the verge of collapse. And I and then the Honorable Msiok, then Vice President, I believe, got in there, him as Chief Commissioner, and I as Chief Scout, and we turned that organization around. It was collapsing. It had a membership, a presumed membership of about 200,000. Today, we have a registered membership of Kenya Scouts of 1,400,000 boys and girls. A dramatic leap. And I'm very proud
of
all the people who contribute.
Yeah.
Registering those, make it possible to know who they are by having a register centrally and locally, and by finally making it an organization worth being a member.
Okay. There is a time the Scout movement was very strong, and it was good because it instilled discipline and certain values in those who were part of the Scouts. In fact, one was he felt very proud to be a Scout, but that seems to have reduced for one reason or the other.
I don't think so. Yes, there was a time that we had problems, as I told you, and it took time to change that image from 2003 to date. I'm telling you today, I'm very proud to be the Chief Scout, and I'm very proud of all the young people in uniform, boys and girls. And they do a lot of things. They do second to Red Cross. Second to Red Cross,
they're still very active.
The Kenya Scouts Association is the most active social organization.
Okay. Well, in case you're joining us now and you might be wondering who the person of interest is, well, don't wonder anymore. It's Francis Ole Kaparo, which of course I discovered his names are Francis Xavier Kausai Ole Kaparo, just in case you didn't know. But we'll stick to Francis Ole Kaparo for now to ensure that we are on the same script. And in case, remember, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask him, we'll give you an opportunity to do that. You can do that via Twitter already, but we may open up the phone lines just for you to get that opportunity, maybe to pose those questions to him. So you, as the chief scout of the Kenya Scouts Association, you're proud with what you've been doing so far. Is it a life thing? Does somebody else take over at some point? You've been there for 15 years.
Yes, I've been there for the same period that I've been speaker, and I think it's just about time that I also get.
You seem to have a special number with a special association with 15.
Except I don't want to be chairman of NCIC for 15
years. We'll come to NCIC. Yeah. And okay, so now
but I just want to say, you know, Scouts do an amazing job across the country. In fact, very recently, sometime last year, we had the Scouts doing a peace marathon across the biggest county in Kenya, that's Marsabit, and a county that was engrossed in very dangerous ethnic conflict. And to their credit, they were able to do that, and they sent the message of peace to all corners of that county. They still do peace marathons in various places across Kenya, and I think it's an organization that every child should join.
I guess that is an organization that we could take advantage of as a country for two reasons. One, like you've mentioned, the peace marathon, for them to spread peace, especially as we're getting closer to 2017. And secondly, to try and reduce negative ethnicity that we have in this country.
Exactly. In fact, within the Scout movement, we run a program called the Messengers of Peace. And every young person in Scouting would like or aspires to be a messenger of peace. I was made a messenger of peace for Africa by the African Scouts Association sometime last year, December last year, in Kampala, Uganda. And it is one of the greatest honors that I really feel proud of, to be a messenger of peace.
Okay.
And I still do that on a daily basis.
Why do you think they picked on you?
Well, I don't even know why you don't know. Because you have seen me going all over the place where the communities have been fighting and killing one another, reconciling the various different warring communities from Marsabit, from Mandera, from Isiolo, Samburu, Laikipia, West Pokot, Baringo, Kisumu, and the Nandi, and the Kabras, and Mount Elgon. I have been all over the place.
And this you've done before you even got any appointment to do with peace. It's something you do out of your own coalition.
I have always done that. Before I got into the chair of NCIC, I was assigned by His Excellency the President to mediate the warring communities in Moyale, particularly, and Marsabit in general. And if you recall, that conflict was so big that the government even went to Parliament to seek authority to use the Kenya Army. That's how bad it was. But I think rightly, the President chose not to use the hardware, but to use the software and the mediation process, which I believe is the right thing. And Senator Haji and I were given that onerous task by the President to do, and took time, almost a year. But fortunately now, you don't hear about those killings in Moyale and Marsabit. When we went there, the whole town of Moyale, Kenya, was under absolute destruction. All the pipes were put in. The hospitals were burned. Houses were razed down. Schools were pulled down. Of the 80,000 residents of Moyale, 54,000 had crossed the border into Ethiopia to seek peace. A shame to our country.
Okay. What was your contribution, and what would you say was the remedy that possibly brought peace in that area?
Well, it was all political. It was as a result of the 2013 election, and it was not the national election results that brought that problem. It was the county government results, where I think 3 or 4 ethnic communities ganged up together, assumed the political power, and excluded one from the political management and resource division of the county. And the group that felt excluded went into war with the rest, and to get that killing, that animosity, that war out, first we had to talk honestly to the communities involved, honestly, and tell them that it was not the right thing to do. You don't have to kill one another to sort out the problem. And secondly, we have to talk to the leadership and convince the leadership that every Kenyan is entitled to be included in the management of their political affairs and also in the division of the resources available. And to their credit, they listened to us, and we did bring in place, we put in place a system where everybody, or most people anyway, thought finally.
They felt that they can now communicate and be at the same level.
And also, you couldn't do anything about the elective positions because the elections have already been done. But we did something about the appointive positions.
Okay. Let's come to your
the
service.
Government employees, the ministers, and things like that, the division of revenue, and finally, of course, there is a sense that we are also part of this, and to the credit of the people of Marsabit, this is the second year now, complete 2 years down the line, and they are brothers and sisters.
And sisters living.
And I really thank them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's come to your service as Speaker of the National Assembly, 15 years, and the fact that you served diligently. And I think you are one of those speakers who are remembered for shouting, order, order, order. For some reason, they don't seem to shout that much as you did. But more critically, you have seen so many members of parliament come and go. But yet, we are left dealing with the same issues that we dealt with before: corruption.
Well, let me first of all say it was an honor for me to make my humble contribution to my country in that position of Speaker, and I was there almost forever. I think the second most difficult job I've done is the one I'm doing now. This is more complicated
than being Speaker of National Assembly.
And being Speaker, but I think just as important. I did a few things as Speaker. First of all, I did the transition from a single party to a multi-party parliament. And it was quite difficult in those years. Some of you won't remember. Some of you are not even born. I don't know whether you are born, but if you are very young. But it was very, very difficult. The House was evenly divided. The government side had 112 members of parliament, and they got to be more because 12 were nominated, and they were all nominated by the president, and 100 were from the opposition. And it was, prior to coming to the House, when I was elected on 26th of January 1993, prior to that, there was hostile political activity around the country. It was even dangerous to drive in GK vehicles. And when these members of parliament came to the House, they came to the House with the same enmity that they embraced outside there.
Right.
And for a long time, members of parliament, those in the opposition would not say hello to those in the government, and the ones in the government would not say hello to those in the opposition. Leave alone sitting for a cup of tea. It was dangerous. It was difficult. It took 3 rounds to get me elected, strictly on party line. I kept on getting 112. Fortunately for me, or unfortunately for the Democrats of the House, Fodasili, led by Mr. Kenneth Matiba, decided not to recognize Parliament. And therefore he ordered his members not to vote. So out of the 170 of them from the opposition, 30 from the opposition were not voting either way. So it was 112 against 70 or something like that. And it went on for 3 rounds.
Before you could finally...
Yeah. So, but anyway, I became Speaker with, just a bare majority, maybe 51%. But that didn't last for long. In the next election, 1998, I ended up with 87.6%, and in the one that followed, I ended up 2003. I got 99.8%.
Okay, you've mentioned something critical here, and you said that there was a lot of animosity and almost enmity between the opposition and government.
Not almost.
There was.
There was enmity. To break that, 6 months down the line, to break that, I had to send 15 members of parliament to the US. 8 from the government side and 7 from the opposition.
To do what in the US?
So that at least they can talk to one another.
On a holiday, or,
Study tour. But basically,
and make sure that they go as a group.
A holiday to go and talk to each other, because there wouldn't be many people to talk to. So they went to the US via London.
Did you look for the most volatile ones, or the most difficult ones?
The most difficult, yes, and the most influential. And I sent them to the US via London. And all the way to Washington, they were not talking to one another. And 2 days later in Washington, they were not talking to each other until they missed somebody else to talk to. So they began to talk to each other.
Who are those members of parliament?
I can't remember of her.
At least a few. I'm sure you could remember a few.
Yeah, of course, the likes of Honorable Shikuku, Norman Nyaga, and the rest, and a lot of others. But anyway, the long and short of it is that 3 days into Washington, they began talking and to each other.
And that set the ball rolling.
And they talked to each other until when they came back to Kenya, they continued to talk to one another, and they spread the virus to the whole house as intended.
Okay. I was just going to say that there doesn't seem to be much change from that time and now, especially when you look at government and opposition. There is a feeling sometimes like they are enemies. Is that something that they just do on a political platform, or is that real?
Let me first of all say a few things about Parliament, then and now. Let's talk about the time I was, because I don't want to talk about the Parliament that I am not part of, and so I couldn't know the reality as it is. The fact of the matter is, when I got in to be Speaker of the House, there were 2 sets of members of Parliament, or even 3. There was a set of members of Parliament who were the people who fought for the independence of Kenya.
Okay, right.
The likes of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Mr. Mwai, His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, Martin Shikuku, and a lot of others, a host of others, Jeremiah Nyaga, and a lot of others. We had a sizable number of those. They were a totally different group. That was a group that had a few attributes that the rest didn't have. The first attribute is that group of early politicians respected one another in spite of their agreements. They never abused one another. They were never vulgar. They used very civil language. They addressed issues of the day, and they did it very insightfully. That was one group. Then we had a totally different group, what you used to call the young Turks. The young Turks was a different ballgame.
They came in with a different kind of energy.
Came in with a lot of energy, a lot of it misdirected. They are very obscene in their language, very vulgar, very riotous, and warmongers. I don't know whether all of them have been cured of that disease. Whether reading the papers, I can still see some of them will take that warmongering to the grave. I thought a totally different lot. Then there was another lot that didn't know what it was that they were in. But they had dreamed, like every member of Parliament, that when they get into Parliament, they will change the whole world.
In a day.
In a day, and they didn't know that Parliament is a corporate entity. You don't do it alone. You have to do it with others. You have to negotiate. You have to convince. You have to be a team player to be able to get things done. Those very quickly became this disillusion, and a lot of them ended up. Some of them ended up not speaking at all. Others learned the ropes and became excellent MPs, and others just became in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving forward, the question I'd asked is, looking at the MPs that we had then, and the ones that we have.
I was coming to that. I was coming to that. So that was the Parliament of 1993, 93, 97. The second Parliament, obviously the group, the pre-independence politicians, a lot of them were out, either through natural attrition, that is death, others because they didn't win
the
elections, so they became fewer. And as you know, in every election, maybe between 60 and 70% of the sitting members get thrown out. So you get a totally different lot. So society changes. What was society in the 60s is no longer the same society. And let me tell you, members of parliament are just a reflection of what is outside. If the outside society is an upright society, parliamentarians will be upright. Okay. If the outside society is not upright, then parliamentarians, you don't expect them to be in a different
So does that
society.
mean we should not have any hope in parliament changing, given that they're just a reflection of who we are? We expect them to come up with laws and legislation that governs and ensures that some of these things that have bedeviled us for years, for instance, corruption, come to an end. But from what you're saying, are you saying that because they're a reflection of what we are, then we should not expect a change?
Well, you know, let me tell you, there's something that really depresses. That depresses me. Let me not talk about everybody else, because I don't know
what others
think, what others like, or what is their aspiration. And the most depressing thing is that society is giving value to things that should be actually be condemned. Our society these days adore liars, people who don't speak the truth, people who go to the platform, lie through their teeth, they get humiliation, they incite communities against one another, and they get the biggest applause. It's a very strange society. And that society ends up electing a leadership that is dishonest, a leadership that is lying. That's one thing that depresses me. The second thing that depresses me is the adoration of material things in this world, particularly the money. And you were asking about corruption. When will it end? It will never end so long as the Kenyan people adore money, however obtained. It is the same people called the Kenyans who will harass their members of parliament out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning because they want some money for the funeral of a relative. They want some money from that MP for school fees for their child. They want money for all manner of things. And we tried, please, it makes value. If when asked a question, it makes value to understand the background of these things. Because of that problem, in the parliament where I was speaker, and at some stage, when the Kenyan government and the Kenyan people wanted to slow down corruption, we came up with a few things. Among them was the creation of CDF. We thought that if resources were sent to the grassroots, this pressure on members of parliament for Harambes will be reduced. That's one thing we did. And by the way, for some time, CDF did a lot of things, good things, until now it's slowly become a political tool, a political kitty for those in power in parliament. Number two, we then again created the ethics, the Leadership Ethics Act, or whatever it was. We were supposed to file our returns. You are not supposed to keep a gift that you are given by somebody else. Yes, and most importantly, you are also not supposed to contribute to public harambes. All public servants, including members of parliament, were and are still barred by law from making contributions to harambes. But guess what has happened? The law exists. It has been ignored by everybody. And the only thing now is you must go to Harambee and give millions without saying where you get it from.
Okay. Let's...
and the society, by the way, claps.
And rejoice.
Loudest.
I mean, we do know that even churches receive this money, and yet this is meant to be the moral compass for the country.
Exactly.
So that becomes a bit of a problem. But now going back to Parliament, and how do we change this, Mheshimiwa? Because you have been there for many years. You have seen people come and go. You're saying that we are the leaders we have are a reflection of who we are as a society. Is that changeable?
I'm not so sure whether you have not crossed the red line. I'm not so sure.
So there is a point of no return?
I'm not so sure. Obviously, there will be a point of return, because obviously, the current system cannot be sustained. It is unsustainable. You have to change. You have to bring morals into leadership, morals into politics. You have to rein on corruption. Whichever way you look at it, you cannot let it go on forever. You have to tone down your politics. There is no way that you can have a society that is haranguing itself. Every single working day, there is a harangue. There is no discussion. It's insults. It's threats. It cannot go on forever. At some stage, something will happen.
Something has to
Something will happen to break this.
Okay. You are in a very good position right now as the chair of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. And part of the mandate for your commission and body is to ensure that we, have some integrity in leadership.
Not quite right. The organization that is mandated to ensure that the leaders live under the leadership ethics and integrity is the Anti-Corruption Commission.
By integrity here, I mean the words we speak,
yes,
that we do not cause anarchy through what we say.
Exactly.
And we are approaching 2017. And we do know that some of the things that led us to the 2007-2008 are purely by what our leaders said. So far, we have not seen any leader who has really been put behind bars for what they have said, and sometimes it's incitive. There's evidence, there's video footage of leaders who have said things which are provocative to cause strife.
Let me just first of all agree with you. And I said earlier, we have a very irresponsible leadership that thinks the only way to get political mileage is by threatening, by insulting, and by causing social strife. And indeed, they are right. Because when they do make those very dangerous statements, they get the greatest applause. But no, you are not right. Several leaders have been behind bars, even if temporarily. What hasn't been the position is convictions of many people. But we have arrested people and put them on cells. You remember, even MPs. We put them in jail. We even wanted to have them remain in custody for quite some time. But let's also understand this. Our role is to investigate, give evidence to the Director of Public Prosecution. It is the Director of Public Prosecution that has the power to prosecute, and they do, as a matter of fact. Most of the cases that we have taken to them, they have prosecuted. But it is also the courts that make the decisions whether or not somebody is guilty or not guilty. We have no role in determining the court diary. True. A lot of cases have been pending for a long, long time. I have written several letters complaining about the undue delay of the cases pending in court. That's the most I can do. Complain. I cannot run the court diary. I cannot interfere with the court process because then it will be interfering and denying the accused the right to a fair trial. To a fair trial. I think the Kenyan people must also understand that there are different roles assigned to different institutions, and I think what they should be asking me is whether or not, given evidence, whether we pursue those issues. Now, you ask why so many of them make those statements and they are not charged even. Yeah, it is true. A lot of them make those statements, and they do make the statement in public, and we are not present because as an organization, NCIC is a very small organization. Everybody in NCIC, including subordinate staff, including drivers, including security officers, including the commissioners and the professional staff, all of us put together, we are under 50 to serve the whole of the Republic of Kenya. So it is not possible for us to be in every political meeting. We rely on citizens to send to us clips, which they do. And I really appreciate those citizens who send it to me or to NCIC, those clips. We also rely on the press. And that is where the most difficult relationship arises. The press happens to be everywhere. And they get these clips, and occasionally they send to us. Or if they are sent to us by citizens, then we go back to the press which aired that. And when we get there and ask them to write, to be a witness, to write a statement, they say this is against our profession. So the most difficult people to get assistance from in matters of hate speech is unfortunately the press. Why? Unfortunately. Because they don't want to volunteer to give evidence. They say it is against them. But you know, we still, nevertheless, even with all those problems, we still...
You do what you can.
We still do what we can, and I want to say we are going to do much more.
What more can be done, Mheshimiwa? Because it looks like the commission is there. It's almost like a dog that has no teeth. It can't bite. Yes, you can bring them to court, but you're left with...
Can I say the following? Kenyans are very strange people, including you.
Well, there's a CEO who said Kenyans have peculiar habits, so I guess it would not be new.
Yeah, it's very strange. Because you see, Kenyans will tell me, please go and arrest those hate mongers. But at the back of that Kenyan's mind, they are hoping that that person is not from their tribe, is not from their political party. When you do that, you are vilified. But I was going to say the following: tomorrow is Wednesday. On Thursday, I'm opening a police officers training forum in Kericho. We're going to teach them on the use of gadgets to record hate speeches, particularly hate speech, and to use that in evidence. And we target about 1,000 policemen. Thursday will be the beginning.
Okay.
Because seriously, we must deal with this problem. So all those Kenyans who love to applaud the hate mongers, so long as they are from their side, must be prepared that a few of them, not all, but a few of them, will be facing the law.
If you're to look back, Mheshimiwa, and look at the responsibility that you have been given to ensure that hate mongers are removed from, operation. If you look back, what would you say you have done that you're proud of so far?
First of all, I don't think, hate mongering cannot be the sole reason why NCIC was created.
Okay, then
and please, if I can explain, if the sole reason why NCIC was created was to put people to prison, the hate mongers, I would never have applied for this job. The main reason why NCIC was created was to reconcile communities and to try to bring Kenyans together, a job I love. And I can tell you without blinking that NCIC has done a sterling job on reconciling communities from all over the place. You heard of the turmoil that was there between the Turkana and the Pokot, between the Pokot and the El Chamus, between the El Chamus and the Tugen, between the Samburu and the Turkana, between the Borana and the Samburu and the Turkana and the Meru, and between the Kabras, the Luyas and the Nandi, between the Luos and the Nandi, and the hell that has been there in Mount Elgon all over time, and what has been happening in Tana River, what has been happening in Kwale because of all those ethnic problems, and Lamu. We've been to all those places. Just turn the clock 1 year. Go to May last year and go through your press or find out what was happening then. There were more ethnic skirmishes across the country. You hardly hear now. And we have done, I think, a good job. We have saved the lives. We have removed animosity. Yes, children are going to school. That is what I love to do.
Congratulations. That's a great job. Fantastic.
Thank you.
But the question then would be, what you're doing is being undone by the hate mongers.
Exactly.
As much as that is not your sole mandate to be there, whatever you're doing is being undone by very few people,
yes,
who we can't seem to deal with.
But you see the problem also. Those people who create a lot of trouble, they are also the ones who will fund us. Now, if they don't want to deal with it, you to deal with the issue, you don't get funded. So you are in a catch-22. You have a problem you want to attack seriously, but you cannot attack this problem seriously because you don't have the the requisite resources to execute your mandate. And I've gone to the highest levels of government to talk about this. And I will still talk about it. Let me tell you one thing. The Kenyan people must fund themselves to save themselves from themselves. NCIC for a long time was dependent on donor funding. Indeed, leading to the last election, 2013, I think the total of donor funding probably was 500 million. And the Kenyan government gave hardly 100 million. Today, the donors are not funding NCIC, even as we go to the next election. We still have a few others funding specified programs, but the bulk of the funding that NCIC was getting is no longer getting. It's the business of the Kenyan people. The Kenyan government must fund this organization so that we can save ourselves from ourselves.
Okay.
And that's my honest belief. But even if I didn't have the money, I have the mouth. I have the voice. Whatever it takes, I'll talk against hate mongers. I'll talk against people who wanted to bring this country to the brink, to the last breath that can come out of my mouth.
So In your admission, you're saying that if history was to judge you, one of the things that you're proud and happy about is the fact that you've reduced community wars in certain areas.
Exactly.
But that needs to be spread throughout the country because we still have a lot of ethnic, negative ethnicity.
It is every day, let me tell you, it is every day a problem, a national problem. And let me say the unsayable.
Say it.
Because that is what I'm known for, to speak my mind. Let me tell you, it is not in the interest of politicians to remove tribalism, particularly the ethnic kingpins. Because then...
They lose votes.
No, they don't lose votes. They lose political merchandise. Kenyans have been reduced not from human beings to political merchandise to be taken at the trading table at any time near the elections. Now is time for auction. Today is auctioneering. What do you bring to the table? In political terms, it doesn't mean how much money, what ideas you bring.
How many people?
How many ethnic votes do you bring to the table? Now, to get that out, you will be threatening the very political existence of very important people. It is as difficult as that. And it is as straight as that. If Kenyans truly want to secure their future and live as a people, as a nation, as a society that is at peace with itself, we must accept reality. And reality is we are a very ethnic country, ethnically divided.
From what you have said, Mheshimiwa, then what it means is that obviously there are very few people who it is purely in their interest for us to remain ethnic and to continue using that ethnic card. That leaves the onus on us, the electorate, to ensure that we root that out. Is that possible, given that it's almost like what you've called a catch-22? These are our leaders. They're the ones who possibly we look up to for development, to answer some of those school fees questions. How do we get ourselves out of that?
I pray someday that God will open our hearts. But it's very difficult. Let me tell you, it's very difficult because those hate speeches you are talking about, the hate speeches are all about one thing, that the next tribe is your enemy, and that without me, you'll be finished by that other tribe. So it's fear. We preach fear to communities so that they fear the other communities. And we tell them, without me, you can't survive, you can't see the next day. So because of that fear, then everybody looks upon their kingpins for protection. We no longer look at the police to protect us. We don't look at the nation called Kenya to protect us. We look at our tribal warriors for protection. It's a very difficult thing. It is a dangerous thing. It is worrying. It is not likely to run away tomorrow.
Okay. Now, NCIC named 19 counties, which
I want to correct that. We never did a thing like that. We never.
Was that a false report?
It was false report. I don't know where they got it from. We haven't got to that level. I know that newspaper put me in there, but they, like you, they asked me that there were some commissioners meeting in Naivasha, and they said there were 19 counties that we have identified as hotspots. What are you going to do? And I told them I'm not aware, which they never reported. But I went ahead to tell them generally what we were planning for Kenya. So I want to make this absolutely clear.
Set the record straight.
I want to set the record straight. We haven't mapped out this country as hotspots politically. What we did last year what we did last year, and it was work in progress, we haven't even finished, was to identify places that we needed to intervene quickly to reconcile communities that were in conflict with one another. And we followed that through, and by and large, a lot of those areas have quietened. But mark my word, the problem is not sorted out. It's dormant for the time being. We must follow through again to ensure that it doesn't rise. But we have not mapped out this country for political hotspots. Okay. We haven't.
That record is set straight. Now, we are running out of time and we need to kind of wind up. But I'd like you to talk to Kenyans and let us know. Here we are approaching 2017. You have a very crucial role that you're playing, and we thank you for doing a good job so far. But what is it that you'd like the electorate to know? You've mentioned something critical here, and you've said that they've been reduced to merchandise.
Yes.
It can only be reduced to merchandise because we allow our leaders to do that.
Yes.
Because we have given them the space to do that. What would you say to Kenyans right now, especially as we reflect at what is happening currently? We have the IEBC, which we may not be able to touch on right now, but as we reflect and look towards 2017.
Well, I like to look straight.
You can
hopefully
look at that camera right
hopefully there. I'm looking at the eyes of a few Kenyans. And I want to say the following. Kenyans, there must be life without politics. And your life is not dependent on who is and who is not a political leader. That shouldn't be. In fact, your life should be dependent on the security of the entire nation called Kenya. Secure the whole of Kenya, because by doing so, you secure yourself. The peace that will prevail across this land will be your guarantee of safety, of yourself, of your children, of the children to be born. Ensure, please, Kenyans, that your life is secured by law, is secured by the peace that prevails around you. It is secured by justice.
Yes, sir.
It is secured by unity of purpose and of aspiration. We should never keep our lives in the hands of politicians. Yes, they're important, and they will continue to be important. But let's make it not the business of politicians to make tribe fight against tribe.
Thank you very much. That's why we'll have to wind up our interview this morning. Francis Xavier Kausai Ole Kaparo, who is currently the chair for NCIC. Thank you very much for honoring our invite and your time. And we thank you for what you're doing and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Well, that's why we're going to have to wind up our person of interest segment this morning. But do stay with us because we've got some news updates coming up. But also later on Your Money. Today is Tuesday. We'll be looking at how you can get out of debt. I'm told there is